Welcome to the database section of your system. This is where you're going to access all of your contacts, companies, and any forms that you create. If it's your first time visiting this page, you're not going to have any contacts. So you'll either want to import contacts by clicking on the import button. This allows you to upload a CSV file to upload your contacts from another system. Or you can create contacts manually by clicking on the Create Contact/User button. This is going to give you a pop-up where you can create your contacts. Now this pop-up allows you to create a few different things, the contact or a user. So if you have teams or you're working in a team environment, you'll be able to create users for everyone on your team and grant them access to your system. Now if you're using membership sites, you'll be able to create users for your membership sites here as well. And if you're using this to create sub-accounts, if you're reselling this to other customers, you'll be able to create users on here under a new system. So that'll be under a new sub-account. And you'll be able to select what package that person has. So you can create users many different types of ways for different use cases. But let's close this out. So the first thing I want you to notice over here on the right is I have filters. So I can quickly filter between see which contacts are owned by a particular person, what contacts have a particular tag, and much, much more. Now you can also perform bulk actions on this page. So if I wanted to, let's say, select all the contacts in this list, maybe after applying some filters, I can add a particular tag to everyone here, remove a particular tag, add them to an automation flow manually, export the contacts, and more. Now let's go ahead and open up this contact Joe Smith. This is the contact details page, and you can edit anything by just hovering over it and clicking on the pencil icon. So I could set the quality score of the contact, for example, or anything else. You can also quickly add notes, and if you happen to have already connected your email inbox or ordered a phone number that's SMS enabled, you'll be able to quickly trigger new messages from here as well. Under additional details, this is where you're going to find tracking information and opt-in information. So if you're doing any sort of advertising, you may have different source codes you passed for tracking links, sub-IDs, and more. You can also track the opt-in information to see if this person is opt-in for SMS, calls, and even your automation flows, plus email. Now, if you ever need to create a user for a contact after the contact's already been created, you can always come down here and click the Create CRM Login button. This allows you to create the sub-accounts for users, membership sites, or logins for your team to access your account with you, depending on what plan that you have. On the right-hand side, you're going to be able to see where this contact came from. So related input. This is how the contact got input into the system. Now if you created this manually, you may not see any information here. Under flows, you're going to be able to see what automation flows this contact is currently active in. And you'll be able to click on plus to add a new flow at any time. Now under pipelines, it's the same thing. If you're using opportunity pipelines or sales pipelines, you'll be able to see what opportunities, tasks, deals, etc. are related to this contact, and you'll be able to add a new one easily. And under billing, this is where you can manage any sort of purchases, subscriptions, invoices, manual transactions, and more. So you can start by adding a credit card on file. You'll get a pop-up to do that. Under more options, you can even set the billing address. Once you have a credit card on file, you can add a subscription. If you try to add a subscription without a card, it'll assume you want this to be a free subscription, even if your subscription has a price set. Now under transactions, you can view the transaction history, how many times they've been billed, invoice history, and more. Now, once you start using the system, you're going to start seeing lots of activity populate on each contact. Every time you add a note, send an email, SMS, a form is submitted, automation flow is run, you're going to see a list of all this activity here in the middle. Now you can also use these little arrows on the contact to quickly tab between different contacts in your database. Now let's explore the forms. On the Forms tab, you'll be able to create forms to capture information from your customers, whether you're generating leads, taking orders, you have a funnel, and more. Let me show you how this works. So first I want to create a new form, and this is going to launch our form builder. On here, you'll start with some default text. Now if you're using this form in the web designer, you can actually just delete this text, because in the web designer, you'll be able to add custom text blocks and you'll actually get more formatting and style options. But for this example, I'm just going to leave this here and I'm going to edit this. So I'm going to hover over it and click on the settings gear. And this is going to launch the text editor. So in here, I'm going to say request more information. And I'm going to go ahead and remove this text below it. So that looks good. I'm going to click Save. Next, I can start dragging different fields onto my form. Now we have another video that goes into more detail on how to use the form designer. But let's go ahead and start with this. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. I'm going to give this a new name, request info form, and click Save again. Now my form has been created. I can click the preview button and launch this form. Now the first thing I want to do is try filling out this form. So I'm going to type in Adam Smith me@me.com. There we go. So once I submitted this form, you'll see it says you've successfully submitted your information. And now I may want to change that message. So to do that, I can go back into the form builder. And I'm going to want to click on Settings. Under Settings, I'll be able to change the title and description of my form for SEO purposes, and I can also control what happens after this form is submitted. Currently, it shows a message, and this is the message that we just saw. So here, I could update this message, or I can change it to redirect to another URL. Maybe I want to redirect the user to a thank you page, an upsell page, or more. On here, you have a bunch of different options from themes, form width, and even the opt-in settings after someone fills out your form. Let's go ahead and leave this as is for now, and I'm going to click Close. Now I'm going to exit the form designer. And now back in my database under Contacts, we're going to see that new contact that was just created when I filled out this form. So I'm going to click on Adam Smith now. Now you can see this contact was created from the form named Request Info Form. And it has the email address and phone number that I entered. Under the Forms tab, I'll see the form that was just submitted. I can click on the pencil to see what was submitted, or even update the values. Now one thing that you'll notice is that when the form was filled out, the only thing that happened was a contact was created and the form submission was saved. But I may want to hook this form up to an automation flow. So now that I created my form and I tested that it's working, I want to go ahead and go into Tracks. Under Tracks, I'm going to see the new form that I made, Request Information Form. And now I'm going to want to trigger a new flow. This is where you can hook it up to custom automation. This is also where you can go to grab the link to your form if you want to use that in an email, or I can click on this little code icon to get integration instructions. So if I already have a website, such as a WordPress blog, I can copy and paste this code and drop it into my website. Now we actually also generate custom API documentation for you as well. So if you're doing any sort of API with a third party and they need to send you data, the best thing to do is first to design a form with the exact data that you expect them to send, and then you can send them this custom API documentation so they can post data to you in the format that you expect. And the API works exactly like the form works. So every time the API receives a post, it creates a contact in the database. Now if you're working with the advanced API scenario, you'll want to come in here and click on Edit Track. This is where you can go under and click on API permissions, and you'll be able to set the API permissions for this API endpoint. By default, the form can only create data with a public key. If you want to enable reading, updating, and deleting of your form submissions, you'll want to turn off the public key auth and generate a secret key. So now that we went over the tracks and how the forms show up on your tracks, and the database section, and how you can create contacts, companies, and forms, and how those forms create contacts in your system, it's time for you to dive in and start using your database.